In today's podcast, you're going to hear me and my husband Jim talk about recreating your career during a life transition. So, both Jim and I had given up our careers to help take care of our kids, to follow and support our spouses' careers, launch back into the work world, and at times launch back out. The conversation isn't overly directed, especially when we get to the point of me asking Jim, hey, now that we're married and he's really doing the primary work at home and helping me with my career, what if something happens to me? What would he do next? And I'm going to give away the answer. He doesn't have a plan. He knows that he can take a breath. He knows that he can just take some time to figure out the next steps, the next moment, because we are prepared, because we are ready if life might give us a bump again. We've seen these bumps, we've lived through them, and we're ready for that next best step. So just give it a listen, nothing too serious, and enjoy your time with me and Jim. Hi, and welcome to another edition of Widow Wisdom and Wealth, Thriving in Career and Parenthood After Loss. I am Donna Kendrick, owner of Septon Financial, and your hostess for this podcast. And here's your host, Jim Guillen, my husband. But both Jim and I have experienced some version of widowhood. Both of us have 3 kids. And we're going to talk a little bit about the parenting part. How were we as parents before the loss of our spouse or our ex-spouse? And how did things change afterwards? And where are we right now? Sound good?
Sure.
All right,
Let's do it.
let's dig in. I'm going to use myself as the first case example. How about that? So, Jim had the lovely pleasure of knowing me before it was Jim and I, as somebody who was working in our home as a contractor. So he watched me parent live and in person. You can add whatever you'd like to add of what you saw, but I will tell you this, that my late husband and I, when we lived abroad, we were pretty strict. We'd have to go to some really formal dinners. The kids had to be on point, I will call it. They really had to be well behaved. They could sit for hours at a restaurant and not get fidgety or itchy. We were lucky, but it took a lot of work. I always felt a little bad for them too. It's almost like they had to exist in a grown-up world when they were little. But we were pretty strict with things. And then truly, after my husband died, it was as if a switch went off. And I felt so bad being that strict with them anymore. I felt like they just lost their dad. They're stressed out. They've moved all the time. Let's just let them run a little bit. And I will say I took my foot off the gas. And I really did let them just kind of, I didn't ask much of them, right? So some of the chores fell away. The way that as my boys became teenagers, the way they spoke to me wasn't corrected as quickly. I'm sure there's things that if their father was alive and they said to me, they would have been taken up off the couch and been off their feet very quickly, and corrected in exactly how they were going to say it, and perhaps would have to come to me and try it again. But I was just on my own, and I chose not to fight or not to make an issue of it. Always saying something was or a behavior was loss specific instead of really looking at it as age specific. And then when I started coming back to work and trying to really spend a lot of time in building my career, I needed that old way of parenting to be back in force. I really needed to be able to have those rules and parameters and to know that if my kids were getting themselves off the bus and were going to be home for 3 hours on their own, that they weren't going to be rude, that they weren't going to be hurting anybody, that they were going to be doing the chores. So I didn't come out, and we'll say it, we have a big Newfoundland dog, to like craters of dog poop in the backyard and dishes in the sink, and it didn't happen. It's almost as if I had to restructure the household again. And I had a real big struggle with it. Um, Fast forward, 2 are grown and out of the house. 1 is away at college now. And I think the third came out okay, right? I do.
They all came in.
I did. The first 2 are lovely, but I think they almost had to be pushed into adulthood and pushed into now that they are adults. And this really started when they were away at school. I was treating them as adults, not just as my child. So as an adult, if you want me to give you respect like one, then we're going to change things. So that was a little of the evolution of where I was as a parent and how I parented. And the one thing Jim and I always talk about is I knew you and your late wife prior to me and you, and I saw the way you guys parented with such consistency. So can you talk to everyone out there almost like how did it work in your situation and now?
Well, I think First thing to start off with was at least um, I really never had it. I never had a parent by myself,
Mm, true.
right? So I had my ex-wife, and like I said, we were on the same page. We disciplined the same. We expected the same out of the kids. We didn't, I guess, baby them.
No, you treated them like little adults.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and not that there it wasn't strict and there
Oh,
wasn't
they had fun.
yelling and there wasn't. It was just, but it was just, I expected stuff out of them. I don't didn't have to. I didn't like to ask twice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, but like I said, I didn't have to do what Donna had to do and what a lot of people have to do. It's just you had to go it alone. And like you said, trying to start a career. And also, when you say you took your foot off the gas, it wasn't like you were just home with them
No.
and you just let them run wild. It was just you were trying to start a new career. You were trying to get working again, trying to keep everything together. So you come home tired, the discipline kind of goes away. And trust me, these kids didn't do anything bad.
Oh no, they were
It
really
was nothing
they're
bad,
good kids.
but it was just, I went from,
Yeah, their rooms were, I said their rooms weren't tidy anymore, right? Where
uh,
they used to be like almost military, like drop the pin on the
yeah,
bed and see things bounce, right? And same thing, like just dishes and
mhm,
things like that, or courtesy of like helping one another. Those things became very, and also I have to say, in the rage of electronic devices, right? Like
yes,
that didn't really hit until we got stateside.
yeah,
And so that was really different where everybody instead of playing together,
mhm,
where they were in silos in their rooms.
yeah,
So yeah, and I think a lot of it too is like you said, you didn't have the parent alone. I was also
never,
trying to love them up, the parents, the love of two, right? For
hmm
one. So okay.
yeah, because even after my divorce, we still parented the same, me and my
You
ex-wife.
did.
And then when she passed, you were already, we were already married.
Hmm.
So my kids were always lucky enough where they never really, there was always multiple people.
Yeah. And always consistency that way.
And I always said we were lucky, all six of our kids. I don't know how that happened. I always say it's luck. Got along
They do.
because I can't imagine trying to. We know people that they're trying to blend families and the kids don't like each other or the kids don't like the new
Spouse.
spouse or partner or whatever.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine going through that and trying to navigate everything else.
Yeah, yeah. In a prior podcast, we talked about all the things
Yep.
you had to do, like
Mhm.
in that beginning stages of when their mom passed, just logistically with applications and social
Sure.
security and stuff like that, which can be a full-time job while working a
Yep.
full-time job while taking care of kids on top of it.
And
So,
we never separated with, to me, it was Donna had as much authority as I did.
and vice versa.
And still to this day, I mean,
Yeah,
we consider she doesn't have to ask me if one of the kids, one of, my biological three, if they do something, I want to say stupid, which it's stupid. Um, she doesn't have to check on me. She doesn't have to say, "Hey, I said this or I did that. Is that okay?" Yeah, it's okay.
yeah,
We're together. So there is no. I think that's a lot of problems when you try to keep it separate,
yeah,
and it just causes problems between everybody at that point because then they don't respect any authority from you if they know I'm going to
yeah.
switch it.
And I have to also like back that up too. When you came into our lives, um, God, how I don't even know, the kids were all teenagers. They were
They
still
were
all home.
17, 16, and 14.
Okay.
Hmm.
You know. So, but you put a layer of fun that they were missing back into life. But it's funny, you have a layer of fun and sharing and freedoms that you
Sure.
share with the kids. Like, well, I'm going to treat you like you can make this
Hmm.
decision on your own, but then you also have to deal with the consequence,
Yeah.
not digging you out. If you think you're old enough to make that decision, then you do it. But you are responsible for the outcome.
Well, it's more of 100% trust
Mhm.
right away, and it can only be taken back instead of the other way around. I just feel like you can gain it back, but it's going to take time. But I give you the freedoms. I figure, and my dad was that way with us.
Mhm.
Which when I look back on it is kind of scary when you say to someone who's 16 or 15, do you think you're old enough for that? And if you say, yeah, okay, but if it goes bad or make a bad decision, you own it.
Yeah.
And that's the way I always was. And I think but I was luckier too, because like I said, year three, we're older. It wasn't little kids. We didn't have little guys running
Yeah.
around.
And they knew you as a person
Yes.
before you started dating their
Hmm.
mom,
Yeah.
like which was very, very different.
Hmm.
But I love the fact that you added a little bit of love back into it and fun, but also with a layer of consequences they had never felt before,
Hmm.
which was their own ability to self-check.
Yes.
And that was taught to them. So that was really good.
And they adapt.
They did. They're great.
Like they were great.
Yeah.
Aged in well.
I
Everyone.
I don't think it was ever a bump. Like when we talk
No,
about the blended
no,
family, like
not at all.
we were so lucky and are
From day
that
one.
no
Hmm.
bumps. And I think a lot of that also had to do with the discussions that you and I would
Hmm.
have, like just as you shared, um, I don't have to check with Jim before I interact with the kids, right? And that we will back one another, maybe behind closed doors, like, hey, next time, let's not do that in
Sure.
public, right? Like, okay, but that's between you and I much, much later. So
And they both lost a parent
they did.
as young kids.
Yeah.
So I think that, camaraderie or understanding with it, it isn't.
They have empathy for one
Yeah,
another.
100%.
Like that's where I think
Mhm.
the six of them are so joined because like
With
they're
it, yeah.
and the sarcasm is big. Like
Oh, it's
they're
yeah.
it's pretty high. Yeah. Yeah. Like, oh, you want me to feel bad for you? Oh, you'll let your dad. Like it's
It gets
yeah.
dark.
It is very dark. So listeners, we apologize. It gets dark if you ever see us in line at the food store. It could get
Hmm.
dark. But let's go back to that. And one things I'll talk about, like with the way I parented with Greg when we lived abroad versus after he passed. And I'm saying this that listeners give themselves a little bit of freedom. The rules don't have to apply anymore.
Yep.
Life is different. The rules that applied when I was co-parenting with my spouse, with Greg, and we were living abroad did not apply when I was living in Northeast Philadelphia with a gaggle of friends and family nearby that we hadn't had for 7 years. The rules feel very different, right?
Hmm.
Some rules have to grow and have to get stricter, right? Like mom needs at least 6 hours of sleep. So we're not going to be up all night long, right? Well, that was one when their dad worked swing shifts or weird shifts. They'd be up to eat with their dad if he came in at
Hmm.
2 o'clock, right? Like those were the things. That was how you got to see him. So these are things that change. And I just want you to just know that even if you've changed the rules, or as I put it, took my foot off the gas, doesn't mean that that was a bad thing.
No.
Doesn't mean it at all. So what advice would you have for people that are struggling maybe a little bit? Because I think one thing that we have to share with listeners is I think you and I have a really good, I'll say it, a sense of self,
Mhm.
right? Like, even though life throws some curveballs along the way, as it does for many, right? There are stop bumps. I think we always have a good sense of we're going to be okay and we're going to handle this. And I have experienced so many of my widowed clients and friends that it just really is wrecking, right? Like there's
Sure.
just a point of depression that takes a while to get out of, or that grief. And maybe parenting at your best isn't exactly the easiest, right? You
Hmm.
have kids going through grief, you're in grief. That's hard. What advice would you have for someone out there?
Well, number one, it's hard to counsel
Oh, yeah.
people when you yourself are going through the same thing.
Yeah.
I think that's hard, especially when you're talking kids. Um, I personally just look at it like, you're allowed to be sad.
Yeah.
You're allowed to be mad.
You're allowed to be overwhelmed.
Yeah, you're allowed to be all that. I just think my main thing is, and it's easy to say, but just don't get stuck in it. Um, I think it just always gets better.
I always say,
It
and
does, and
I know sometimes you roll your eyes at me, but I'm like, tomorrow is a great chance to do it again,
yeah.
right? Like today is done. We cannot change it, right? But tomorrow is our next best step. Let's try it again. So,
And I think too, I think everyone, if you lose a spouse, or for me it was an ex-spouse, but I think in general you lose someone, their partner or whoever's always going to want you to be happy. And I do believe that, I mean, I always joke with her because, I always say, yeah, the next husband can enjoy the house. Joking around when something happens to me, I always joke about it.
he's referring to the fact that the current house we live in, Jim has put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it, and it's beautiful. And he always jokes that as soon as it's done,
The
it's like
next guy's going to love it.
he's gonna like take a slip off a
Yeah.
ladder, and the
Hmm.
next guy's gonna just think he was so talented.
But no, she'll always say, don't say that.
I know,
It's
I
like,
hate that you say that.
but I'd rather have that happen. I mean, who wants to be, it's the life moves on thing.
But listeners, if it does happen, I have power of attorney over his finances as well as over his
Mhm.
life-saving,
Yes.
what do you call it? Healthcare directive,
Okay.
living will.
Yes.
Yes, we know all of that.
Hmm.
And yeah, we've got the will signed, so I'll be
It'd be
fine.
just fine.
No, my heart will be
Mhm.
broken. Yeah, I don't know. I've been lucky. I got found love twice.
Should be all
You're gonna outlive me. Listeners, make sure he sticks with the podcast if anything happens.
right. Hmm.
Okay. All right. Any wise words that we'll leave? We'll leave this one kind of short today, talking about the parenting and where we were, how we did it through widowhood. pluses and minuses. I have to say, I would, if I had a label for you, it's just consistency. I don't think you wavered at all
Hmm.
in consistency. Maybe a little less chores, but
Little
consistency.
less true.
A
But
little
I
less
am working
chores.
on the house.
You are.
So
You're
I think
there
that's
in the
fine.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would just say, people always worry about doing it wrong. You even started this with acting like you did it wrong by taking it. I just
Yeah.
don't think there's a wrong. It's sometimes you might have to, like I said, take your foot off the gas. But the important thing is you got to put it back on. It's like, all right, that was enough.
Hmm.
That was enough. Stuff changed. Give me a little leeway here because everyone needs that downtime. But to be productive as a person and as an adult, I think you got to get past it or they'll be stuck in that spot forever and use it as an excuse for everything. And we talk about it, a lot of people, especially kids, would love to just use it as an
Ooh.
excuse.
Do you want to do another podcast on that next when they use it as an excuse?
Mhm.
Oh, stay tuned, my friends. All right. Thank you all so much for listening to Widow Wisdom and Wealth. This is our version of parenting through widowhood. The before, the during, and maybe a little bit of the after. The kids really did all come out great. Guys, if you're listening to it, even the big two, I love you dearly. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.